From forgotten safes packed with silver and $100 bills to a rusting UFO in an abandoned bunker, our world is literally stuffed with finds that look like scenes from a science fiction movie. Underwater, in the jungle, in the desert, and right under our feet, people accidentally stumble upon things that shatter the familiar picture of reality. Today on Top Facts, you will see incredible finds that shocked the whole world. Watch until the very end. The further it goes, the more interesting it will be. I wish you a pleasant viewing. Have you ever wondered what happens when time stops for decades inside a forgotten hangar? Urban explorers accidentally stumbled upon an entire horde of vintage cars perfectly preserved under a thick layer of dust. These classic vehicles, some of them from the middle of the 20th century, are frozen in time, like exhibits of a closed museum. The collection is so unique that even millionaires would find it extremely difficult to assemble a similar set of rare cars. In an abandoned mansion that once belonged to a drug cartel, treasure hunters with metal detectors found two huge safes buried in the yard. To pull these monsters out, they had to bring in heavy machinery. Inside was a real criminal treasury, an arsenal of weapons, rare antique guns, whole stacks of sheets with passwords and codes, as well as gold coins and heavy gold bars. In addition, wet bundles of cash, swollen from water, very clearly showed how much dirty money had once been hidden in this place. During the exploration of an abandoned house with a metal detector, these guys broke through the floor and ran into a huge hidden stash that had been concealed there for many years. Under a rotten board, a whole treasure revealed itself. An urn filled with old coins and bundles of banknotes, hidden in such a way that their owner clearly intended to come back, but never did. History starts to come alive when the metal detector goes off and you really catch gold. Just like this lucky person who dug up a centuries-old artifact. Inside it, there was a rare German silver medal issued in honor of Kaiser Wilhelm II's speech in the Reichstag in the year 1914. Right in the middle of a boundless desert stands an abandoned United States Navy airplane from the 1950s, very far from any airfield. How it ended up in such a remote place is a mystery even to those who found it. An ordinary day with a metal detector can easily turn into a job for investigators. That is exactly what happened when a heavy locked safe was pulled out of muddy sludge. When they cracked it open, inside they found a loaded pistol and a bundle of banknotes soaked with water. It very much looks like the safe was simply thrown into the water to cover up the traces of some long ago crime. Researchers found one of the last surviving paddle tugs in the world, the PS John H. Amos. It is a 33.5-meter-long vessel weighing 202 tons, built in Scotland in the year 1931. It still has its wooden paddle blades, coal-fired furnace, and control systems in the wheelhouse. All of this has survived almost a full century and is miraculously still intact. When severe drought exposed the bottom of the Lady Bower Reservoir, the water level dropped to record lows. And then, an incredible secret emerged from beneath the surface: the submerged ruins of two whole villages that had gone under the water back in the 1940s during the construction of the reservoir. Researchers discovered well-preserved structures, old railway supports, pumping stations, bridge beams, and installations from the time of the Second World War, scattered across the newly exposed bottom. Ancient legends spoke of the treasures of a wealthy tribe. But no one expected the story to turn out to be this literal. With the help of a metal detector, a treasure hunter found a brick wall behind which there was a hidden underground room packed with artifacts. Inside were urns in the shape of animals, engraved vessels, and a huge stone chest full of jewelry made from various precious metals. But the main thing was the pots filled to the brim with old coins. Get ready to meet a giant, next to which a Tyrannosaurus looks almost like a household pet. A farmer in Argentina discovered the remains of a colossus that is officially considered the largest animal ever to walk on land. This prehistoric giant reached roughly 40 meters in length and rose up to about 20 meters in height. That is like a 7-story building. It weighed around 77 tons, roughly the same as 14 adult African elephants piled into one gigantic hill. You know what? It is hard even to imagine how it managed to move at all. In the state of Rhode Island, there is a ruined mausoleum that can rightfully be called one of the creepiest abandoned locations. Human remains and dentures are still lying scattered on the floor. Despite news reports and the indignation of local residents, nobody has really taken on the task of securing this desecrated burial site, where many coffins are still lying open. The list of names of people who still rest here looks like an actual list of ghosts. In a remote part of the Australian outback, locals discovered a huge charred fragment of space debris. It turned out to be part of a Chinese rocket that had survived re-entry into the atmosphere. The 3-meter-long fragment was still smoldering when it was found. It had fallen after separating from a satellite. You could say that the space race literally fell into someone's backyard. I am Venom. In one of the caves in Krabi, Thailand, tourists discovered a huge skeleton that looked as if a giant creature were fighting a horned serpent. The video instantly spread across the internet, but the truth turned out to be much calmer. It is a large-scale art installation, created based on local legends and folklore. Decades later, the legendary T-34 tank was finally lifted out of its watery grave, one of the most impressive recovery operations ever caught on video. The 30-ton machine, lost during the battles of the Second World War around the year 1944, was miraculously preserved thanks to the cold water and silty bottom. And most astonishing of all, after cleaning and repairs, experts suggest that the tank's diesel engine could theoretically be started again, even after almost 80 years. How would you react if you saw a giant metal starfish in the water? Such a mysterious 8-armed circular structure was found off the coast of Rhode Island and baffled both locals and specialists. It has steel legs and a concrete top. According to experts, it is part of an old oceanographic monitoring system. Researchers discovered petroglyphs carved directly into a vertical stone wall. These drawings are an attempt by people of an ancient civilization to tell about their life, events, and faith. The engravings have survived more than 2,000 years, enduring rain, wind, and sun, and they are still clearly visible. Imagine you're driving past a forest, and suddenly you see a ship. A 15-meter-long vessel stands mysteriously abandoned right in the forest, almost by the roadside. It looks so out of place that it seems as if it was simply teleported there from some harbor. Under mountains in China, researchers descended into a huge cave system with incredible natural formations. Enormous chambers where giant stalactites hang from ceilings more than 100 meters high, and powerful stalagmites rise up from the floor. This underground world, carved by water over millions of years, looks like another extraterrestrial realm. Divers hunting for treasure on the seabed of the Caribbean Sea found what every treasure hunter dreams of: a real treasure chest. It was lying on the seafloor, and inside were ancient coins and a Buddhist statuette. It is practically the perfect picture from a child's fantasy about pirate treasure. At an altitude of 2,500 meters in the remote mountains of Idaho, an explorer found the abandoned mining complexes of Skylark and Ramshorn from the late 19th century. These buildings, constructed directly into the rock walls, once served as home for miners who extracted lead and silver. And it is amazing that the barracks, Cable car supports and other structures are still standing almost exactly as the workers left them more than 100 years ago. Solving an old case, literally. When divers descended into the murky water near the city of Murfreesboro, they discovered a car that had been stolen from a dealership 2 years earlier. Using powerful magnets and special floats, the team managed to pull the car off the river bottom, where it had once been dumped to hide the evidence. One explorer stumbled upon a military fire truck hidden at a secret government facility in the state of Connecticut. Its original red paint is still visible, and it still has its original rescue and emergency equipment installed. The vehicle looks as if it is waiting for its next call, even though it was abandoned many years ago. Deep in the forest stands a house with huge letters reading, "Do not enter," on the roof. And that warning is not for nothing. In the attic, explorers found a disturbing eyeless doll that radiated a sense of real obsession. The atmosphere was so unsettling that the explorers simply turned around and left immediately, not wanting to go any further. There is clearly something wrong with this place. In front of us is a huge graveyard of military equipment, where weapons were simply left to rot. Everywhere, there are 66mm rocket launchers, heavy anti-aircraft guns, and heaps of metal. Especially eerie was a bucket claw from an excavator, almost identical to those used in Chernobyl, lying next to gas masks and possibly dangerous material samples. The next lucky finder was a young woman who, with the help of an ordinary metal detector, discovered precious stones and something even more valuable. Among the finds were real gold nuggets that had been lying in the ground for years, waiting for someone to finally discover them. Imagine you enter an old English cottage, where, it seems, no one has set foot for many years. In the half-ruined rooms, under a layer of dust and cobwebs, stand antique furniture and bronze statues. But the creepiest thing is the collection of stuffed birds, such as owls, which seem to go on watching everyone who comes inside. When the water level in Lake Mead dropped, a 6-meter-long boat damaged by fire emerged on the surface. Despite the damage, it still retains old marine equipment, distributors, spark plugs, and other parts that have amazingly survived decades underwater. After 17 years of complete oblivion under bushes and trees, a Mack truck from the year 1976 was discovered. The vehicle was completely overgrown and looked like a long-dead chunk of metal. But thanks to the efforts of the enthusiasts who found it, the truck was brought back to life. And suddenly its engine, which seemed to have fallen silent forever, started again and began to run. From a distance, it looked like a real UFO. But when the explorers came closer, the truth turned out to be even more interesting. In front of them stood an incredible building specifically designed to look like an alien spacecraft. Sometimes even a school experiment can outlive half a century. Two brothers found in Bahamian waters a Pepsi bottle with a note inside, written almost 50 years earlier by a 14-year-old schoolboy. The glass bottle had traveled about 1,600 kilometers across the Atlantic before ending up in their hands. Thanks to the note, they were able to track down the author of the message, who by now had become a grandfather. One metal detector enthusiast made a chilling but incredible discovery. During a dig, he came across an ancient human skeleton lying deep underground. Around the remains was an actual little treasure chest, dozens of old coins, elegant gold necklaces, and fine chains. Everything suggests that this person was buried together with their most valuable possessions many centuries ago. This vehicle from the time of the Second World War can safely be called one of the most unusual. In front of the explorers was a strange hybrid that seemed to combine the features of a tractor and an amphibious vehicle. The machine looks as if it was built according to the principle, whatever we had, we welded on. and that is exactly what makes it so memorable. The attentive eye of a tourist noticed in the mud a perfectly preserved flint or bone arrowhead neatly sticking out of the ground. This hunter's weapon is approximately several thousand years old. Its length is about 5 centimeters, and once such arrowheads were a real, high-tech survival tool. While exploring a rocky cliff, a group found ancient coins literally embedded into the rock. This accidental, natural safe had preserved the currency for centuries, thanks to geological processes. The coins seem to be glued to the stone forever and have survived everything: rain, winds, and time. Not far from Helsinki, researchers found concrete bunkers left over from the Porkala naval base of the year 1944. This huge network from the time of the Cold War once could hold up to 50,000 people. Now the former fortifications simply crumble quietly, reminding us of the former tension between superpowers. Get ready to be amazed by giant teeth found on a riverbank. These massive molars belong to a woolly mammoth that roamed this area more than 10,000 years ago. Each tooth weighs about 27.5 kilograms and is covered with characteristic ridges needed to chew tough prehistoric vegetation. I am not fat, it is just my skin. Fluffy. The joking phrase fits perfectly with the scale of the former owner of these teeth. One explorer discovered a burned-out house from the 1950s and 1960s that before the fire had been a perfect time capsule. Despite destroyed upper floors and peeling wallpaper, classic cars survived inside. A genuine 1960s Beetle and an old Morris. The house is ruined, but the cars remain as a reminder that life once bustled here. Take a look at an ancient stone giant about 2,700 years old. This is an Assyrian Lamassu statue carved from a single piece of stone and weighing about 18 tons. It was recently unearthed in northern Iraq, almost completely intact. Its height and width are approximately 3.8 by 3.9 meters, and on the wings and body, you can still see incredibly fine detailing that has survived millennia. At first, it was noticed on Google Maps, a strange round depression in the middle of the desert. It sparked so much interest that a group went there in person. When they reached the spot, they saw an almost perfectly geometrical circular opening going deep into the ground. What it is and what it was used for is still a mystery. Now imagine this. You're looking at a map and you see a giant triangle in the desert. This enormous shape in Whitman, Arizona, is in fact an abandoned airfield from the time of the Second World War called Luke Auxiliary 4. Each side of the triangle is a runway on which, more than 70 years ago, cadets practiced landing. Here, Russian investigators uncovered the stash of a major criminal group. Inside, they found 36 kilograms of explosives, about 100 units of weapons, including grenade launchers and automatic rifles, and roughly 15,000 rounds of ammunition. It is not just a stash, but a full-fledged underground arsenal. In January of the year 2018, a family from Idaho Falls woke up to a loud crash. It turned out that the floor in their garage had collapsed downward, revealing a hidden room 3.6 meters deep, filled with strange objects. This secret room is not listed in any city documents, and inside they found children's toys, old bottles, and items from the 1950s. A team of archaeologists spent hours digging through an old, early 20th century railway dump. Forcing their way through heavy, iron-rich soil, they found rare poison bottles, old medicine vials, vintage soda bottles, and ceramic jugs. Rising from the water near Kronstadt, researchers came across the fort Emperor Alexander I. It was built in the 1840s as a large coastal fortress with graceful cast iron staircases and complex engineering. But after the fort was decommissioned in the year 1896, it was converted into the world's first laboratory for studying plague. Scientists risked their lives here, working with deadly pathogens until the year 1918. A real jackpot. Treasure hunters dug up a chest in which there were real gold bars of enormous value. Someone's carefully hidden riches had simply been waiting underground for their moment. Over more than 30 years, the so-called Clown Museum discovered about 200 unrestored vintage cars. Among them is one of the largest collections of Ford Model T vehicles gathered in one place. Competing with these people in the search for rare cars is essentially pointless. In Lithuania, there is an abandoned park that can be called a Soviet twin of Pripyat. Here, there is still a rare Jetstar 2 ride from the year 1969, one of only 3 that still exist in the world. Once it accelerated up to 72 kilometers per hour. And what is especially surprising is that despite decades of neglect, some of the old mechanical rides are still in working condition. Deep in the rainy mountains of Vancouver Island hides the forgotten gold rush town of Leechtown. Once it was a lively settlement, but now there are only rusty mechanisms from the 1920s and the overgrown ruins of the Kapoor Lumber Company sawmill. The history of this place is literally being overgrown with moss and trees. The next treasure hunters literally stumbled upon gold. When they started digging into the ground, gilded bricks poured out from beneath it. It looked as if someone had once hidden wealth directly in the foundation. While digging through hard, rocky soil, treasure hunters found ancient clay vessels that had lain underground for centuries. When they carefully opened the cracked jugs, thousands of old coins and precious ornaments spilled out. This incredible treasure, hidden in several caches, is a hugely important historical hoard that someone deliberately concealed many centuries ago. Believe it or not, an old bus that once carried the team for which Cristiano Ronaldo played was found rotting away in a forest 30 years later. The 12-meter-long bus still keeps traces of its football past inside, items and little things related to the game that lay there for decades. In August of the year 2020, at a gold mining site near Fairbanks, Alaska, after a flood, a woolly mammoth skeleton was fully exposed. This Ice Age giant was almost complete. Huge tusks so heavy that it took 4 people to lift them, jaws with intact molars, leg bones. Everything was lying right there in the gold field. Imagine the level of surprise for people who were digging for gold, but instead found an Ice Age colossus. One explorer came across an item that at first seemed to him to be an antique weapon. But on closer inspection, it turned out to be a steam drill hammer from the beginning of the 20th century, a device for drilling rock that had lain for more than 100 years and still preserved its shape. In Lake Michigan, a mysterious funnel about 9 meters across was discovered. It goes approximately 6 meters deeper than the surrounding lake bottom and still raises questions among researchers. What created it? A natural process or human interference? Step back 166 million years in an English limestone quarry. Workers found more than 200 footprints left by huge dinosaurs, megalosaurs. These tracks stretch for about 150 meters and show the exact route along which these giants once walked across an ancient muddy bottom. It is now the largest and most important dinosaur track site ever found in the United Kingdom. One brave explorer found a military airfield in the desert and discovered there an abandoned strategic bomber, B-58A. This Cold War machine once served as a flying test bed for guided missiles. Now it stands forgotten, with giant landing gear struts and complex turbine innards open to all the winds. This Victorian-era pub looks as if someone hit pause on it 15 years ago. Inside, explorers found real treasures: hats from the 1870s, vintage motorcycles, original paintings slowly rotting in the gloomy corridors. In the basement, everything is untouched as well: unique brewing equipment and dusty jukeboxes from another era. And what do you think about this find? A subscriber sent us this photograph without a single caption. Here we clearly see an object not of earthly origin or secret technology, or perhaps some unknown art installation. What do you think about it? Write in the comments. These guys stumbled upon a mansion that had been abandoned back in the year 1997. In the storage rooms, there are still food products with dates from 1995, family photographs hang on the walls, Christmas decorations stand around, and personal belongings are untouched, as if the owners simply disappeared in one night without taking absolutely anything with them. After climbing a rocky ridge, adventurers saw what at first they took to be their own Area 51, but it turned out to be an abandoned industrial site hidden behind the mountaintop, with several warehouses, dangerous shafts from which sulfurous gases were escaping, and boxes filled with detonators. The secret location of the facility and the modern equipment simply left behind in such a remote place only intensified the question: what exactly was actually happening here? Near one Greek island, there is a chaotic dump of ships, huge rotting vessels piled together and forgotten. Among the rust and debris, researchers noticed strange structures that looked like cement carriers crossed with skunks, bizarre and slightly frightening iron monsters. Divers came across a strange underwater composition: a mannequin, a boat, and an airplane, all in one place. One can only hope that this was deliberately created as an artificial reef or art object, because no other logical reason for such a scene readily suggests itself. The researchers literally had to race against the demolition crew. They returned to a half-collapsed old bank, this time armed not with a crowbar, but with an electric saw. The previous crowbar simply broke during an earlier attempt to break in. When they finally managed to cut their way to the forgotten safe deposit boxes, what they found inside completely knocked the ground out from under their feet. Real silver bars, stamped "Fine Silver 99", envelopes stuffed with $100 bills, and an entire sack of old coins. Among them, Mercury dimes from the year 1941 and Buffalo nickels. Most of the boxes were empty, but the few that still contained treasure made this treasure hunt absolutely worthwhile. Now imagine this. You're walking through the British countryside, and suddenly you come across a legendary Soviet attack helicopter. Sounds like a dream, right? But it is not. Right in the middle of the English rural landscape stood a giant Mi-24 Hind, one of the most fearsome combat helicopters of the Cold War. It was found on the RAF Spade Atom base, which in the 1950s and 1960s was used for testing British missiles. The machine is so huge that its exhaust nozzles are as big as slides in a shopping mall, and yet the cockpit inside is unexpectedly cramped and tight. In the presidential palace in Madagascar, they recently showed the public a gigantic emerald weighing about 300 kilograms. The stone is so enormous that experts are still assessing its real value, bringing in specialists from all over the world. At one unique excavation site, scientists discovered an almost complete dinosaur skeleton about 180 million years old. The bones were so massive that a heavy crane and a team of 20 researchers were needed to lift them. In the wilds of Sakhalin, researchers came across an abandoned Soviet aviation training range. On a 2.5-kilometer runway, there are still two MiG-23 fighter aircraft, and nearby hides an underground communications bunker. All of this was left here after the Fighter Aviation Regiment was disbanded in the year 1994. In a half-ruined, abandoned mansion, explorers came across an incredible collection of luxury and classic cars that their mysterious owner had simply left behind and vanished. In front of them lay a genuine automotive graveyard garden. Decaying Pontiacs, Camaros, Mustangs, and even a Ferrari F355, slowly falling apart under layers of dust and rust. Imagine you step aboard an abandoned ship, and there is a casino frozen in time. This 50-meter-long ship once took hundreds of players into international waters, so they could legally place bets. Now it is waiting to be sent for scrap, and the chips are still lying scattered across the dusty tables. The slot machines stand as dead boxes with dark screens. The roulette wheels are frozen and waiting for players who will never return. The huge gaming hall, more than 550 square meters in area, has turned into a ghostly capsule of this ship's 3 minutes of fame. Now, meet the T-Rex of the ocean. This colossal 2-meter-long skull belonged to a pliosaur, one of the most fearsome marine predators in the history of the planet. It was found embedded in a cliff in Dorset, roughly 15 meters above ground. The teeth are sharp as knife blades, perfectly adapted to tear prey to pieces 150 million years ago. It is one of the most complete and best preserved pliosaur specimens ever found by paleontologists. Deep in the forest, tourists found a crashed helicopter gradually being eaten by nature. The rotor blades are frozen as if time had stopped, and trees are already growing through the cockpit. The origin of this machine remains a mystery. No plates, no official history, only silent metal and the trees growing around it. Take a look at a real mechanical monster hidden in the darkness of an abandoned mine. Researchers found a huge 2-stage compressor and 9-ton electric locomotives still standing on the rails. In addition, the mine has its own welding workshops and a complex power supply system, a rare example of a completely autonomous underground complex. Near the Hope Isles, they found the remains of a 36.5-meter-long vessel with an incredible story. An American once deliberately ran the ship aground about 30 years ago and survived, living on it for almost 28 years, until he finally abandoned his rusting vessel, which by then had turned into a bird sanctuary made of scrap metal. Daredevils using a high-tech drone found the crash site of a Second World War bomber, a B-24 Liberator, hidden deep in the jungles of Papua New Guinea. This huge aircraft with a wingspan of 33.5 meters still lies where it fell, surrounded by impenetrable greenery. Off the coast of Grenada, at a depth of about 5 meters, they found 26 life-size figures arranged in a circle. Here, you can see compositions such as Christ of the Deep, a mermaid, petroglyphs, guardians, and even a man on a bicycle. All of this is part of an underwater sculpture park that has become a home for marine life. A real danger for the heart, but in a good way. One prospector's metal detector practically went crazy when it detected a huge gold nugget lying just a few centimeters below the surface in Alaska. The find is worth a fortune and is a vivid reminder that an enormous amount of treasure is still hiding beneath our feet. In the High Sierra Mountains, researchers found a forgotten gold mine, an abandoned settlement hidden from the world for 80 years. On the site, there are still massive engines and rusting equipment for transporting logs. The entire complex looks as if the workers simply left one evening and never came back. On the remote shore of Itup Island, a storm threw up a ship that ended up staying there forever. Now, more than 15 meters of rusted steel structure stand on black volcanic sand, turning this corner of the planet into a surreal postcard. In a remote desert, they found a unique time capsule of mid-20th century America. It is a gigantic collection of perfectly preserved vintage cars, buses, campers, and even military aircraft. There is everything here. From 1970s, buses converted into little homes and small teardrop trailers to classic wartime trucks. The dry desert climate has literally preserved all these vehicles in the past. Imagine you're pushing through thick jungle and suddenly emerge into the presence of a gigantic ghost from the past. In front of you is the crash site of the legendary Japanese Second World War, aircraft G4M1, Betty 2656. It still lies where it fell, on Boana Island, with a wingspan of about 25 meters. There is a place where time stopped in the era of steam traction. In an abandoned railway depot, old steam locomotives from the nitrate boom of the early 1900s are still standing. Now these giants of the past slowly rust alone, turning into steel monuments to a long-gone age. Another ghost car from the past is a Buick from the year 1914. It stood untouched for 85 years, and its original mileage was only 1,776 miles. And when it was finally found and restored, a miracle happened. The century-old engine roared again, and the car got a new owner and a second life. Welcome to a real automotive paradise. Here, in one place, stand more than 500 classic cars. Row after row of vehicles from different decades, from different countries and eras. For a car enthusiast, this is not just a junkyard, it is a treasure trove that you can only dream of. Who says searching with a metal detector is boring? Ask the guys whose device caught a live phosphorus incendiary bomb from the Luftwaffe that had been lying in a field in Essex since the time of the Second World War. That brings today's list of finds to an end, but not the mysteries. Write in the comments which of these discoveries scared or amazed you the most, and subscribe to Top Facts for the most incredible compilations of facts and videos from all over the internet. Thank you for watching, and right now, click on one of our previous episodes.